So if you've got one of these 360 cameras, what are some tips and tricks that are really going to help make your videos stand out? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you 10 creative shot ideas that are all really easy to do. I'm going to walk you through each one step by step so that you can create your own. A big thanks to Insta360 for sponsoring this video. I'm going to be shooting everything on the Insta360 X4, and as always, all gear used in this video will be linked in the description below. Okay, I'm calling this first one In Food because we're quite simply going to put our 360 camera in some food. And since we're in Italy, let's put it in some pizza. I'm going to pre-slice the pizza and put the camera upside down so that the lens is as close to the pizza as possible. I'm shooting in 8K 30 frames per second, and that is it. You can now tuck in and reframe your shot however you like. You could zoom in and add a rotation like this shot here, for example. You could just straight up zoom in. This works really well. The beauty of shooting in 360 is that you can reframe your shot however you like in the edit and get really creative. Okay, shot number 2, the DIY zip line. For this, you'll need some fishing wire, a pen, and some electrical tape. Tape your 360 camera to the barrel of the pen like this, then thread the fishing wire through the pen, and you now have a DIY zip line for your camera. For this example, I'm going to send the camera off this bridge. You'll need a friend to help with this. Make sure the fishing wire is pulled nice and tight, and then release your camera. You now have an incredibly unique shot that would be nearly impossible to capture any other way. And like with all of these shots, you can reframe however you like in the edit. I'm shooting in 5.7K 60 frames per second for this so that I can slow the shot down and smooth it out in the edit. Also, just be mindful that on really sunny days like this, you might get some light reflection bouncing off your fishing line, but with shooting in 360, we can always reframe our shot to face the other way and crop it out like this. Okay, next up, the fake drone shot. For this, we're going to need the 3-meter long extension pole. A number of different ways that we can do this, but for this first example, I'm going to start with my camera high up off the ground, pushing forward past this sign. I'm then going to keep pushing forward, bring my camera nice and low to the ground, and then lift my camera up to an elevated position. I like to put a slight rotation on these shots in the edit to give it more of a drone feel. And as you can see, with the camera starting high and then going low, we really get the feeling of a drone flying through the streets of Italy. And with our camera at the end of this extension pole, we can pretty much put it anywhere we like, and this allows us to capture some really unique shots. And if you really want to get some extra height, you can always attach your 3-meter long extension pole to your selfie stick like this. Now, you can keep things simple by having your camera face forward and pulling back. This will give you a more subtle cinematic feel. Or my favorite way is to really take advantage of shooting in 360 by adjusting the framing in the edit. You could start with your camera pointing up, pushing forward, then tilt down, maybe add a slight rotation to your shot whilst bringing your camera lower to the ground. All of these slight adjustments in the edit will make a big difference to your shots and really make them stand out. Also, adding foreground elements to these shots will help give them more depth, movement, and interest, like this shot pushing through the branches of this tree, compared to, say, this shot here out in the open, where the movement is more subtle and less immersive. I'm editing all of these shots in the Insta360 Studio app on my laptop, by the way, because this gives you a bit more control over your shots, but equally, you could just edit these shots on your phone using the mobile app. Also, be sure to add sound design to these shots. This is an often overlooked part of shooting 360 video. Take this shot here, for example, just a random guy walking around with an extension pole, but add some music and sound effects to this shot, and we now have this. Okay, number 4, the tape measure. For this, we're going to attach our 360 camera to a tape measure using some electrical tape. This will allow us to lower it down smoothly. Now, find a suitable spot to lower your camera from, like the top of this building. I'm shooting in 5.7K at 60 frames per second for this shot so that I can slow it down in the edit, and I'm simply going to release the camera and let it drop. And we now have a shot that falls from an elevated position. You can, of course, reframe your shot however you like in the edit. Now, full disclosure, I could only find a 5-meter long tape measure here in Italy, so the drop wasn't as far as what I would have liked. For the best results, make sure to use a 10 or 20-meter long tape measure, but hopefully this shows proof of concept that this shot actually works. If you'd like me to do a dedicated video on this technique, just let me know in the comments section below. Okay, moving on, number 5, the push through. For this, we're going to push our camera through a tight space. The pillars in this wall will do nicely. I'm shooting in 8K 30 frames per second for this, and I'm going to pull my camera back through the wall and lift it up. Then in the edit, we can either keep it simple and have our camera facing forwards like this. This looks okay, but if we keyframe this shot in the edit, we can get some really creative and unique shots. Shots that are truly impossible to capture using a traditional camera. The push-through technique will literally allow your camera to reach places that just aren't possible with a regular camera, unlocking a world of opportunities when it comes to creative shots. Now, out of all of these shots, reframing in the editing process is what's going to make these ones stand out, so be sure to experiment. Okay, next up, we've got the lookup. Now, the idea here is simple. Put your camera deep in amongst something and lift it up. Let's use the teddy bears and mugs at this gift shop, for example. This shot is incredibly easy to do and delivers some very dramatic results. You can keep it simple and just lift up like this, or add a rotation to these shots for a much more dynamic look. The lookup has to be one of the most underrated shots when it comes to shooting 360 video. Sometimes simple is best. This shot works great on just about anything. Just make sure your camera is deep in amongst it and frame your shot so that it is looking up. Okay, number 7, the moving time-lapse. With our camera in time-lapse mode, I'm going to clamp it to this bench and get it high up above the crowds of people. You could use a tripod for this, but I'm going to get more reach with this extension pole. The most important thing is that the camera remains nice and still. And voila! We now have a time-lapse, but because we're shooting in 360, we can of course reframe our shot however we like in the edit. So let's make this a moving time-lapse panning from left to right. I also like to add some motion blur to these shots to really help emphasize the movement. Okay, number 8, the wraparound. With this effect, your environment literally wraps around you. Nice and easy to pull off this one. Using the invisible selfie stick, simply hover your camera over something interesting whilst walking. Water works well with this, flowers, anything bright and colorful. Then in the edit, select the tiny planet effect and adjust your tilt angle. And just like that, your location will wrap around you. Okay, number 9, the POV match cut. A great way to transition from one shot to another, this one. For this, you'll need something to help you get that POV perspective. I like to use this neck mount, but use whatever works best for you. If you get desperate, you can always hold your camera in your mouth. Then it's just a simple case of shooting the same action at multiple locations. So you could, for example, clap your hands at one location and then again at another, and then cut the two clips together at the point in which you clap your hands. Or clink glasses with a friend, experiment with this one and get creative. Okay, number 10, one of my favorites, the crane shot. This will really help give your videos that Hollywood look and a great way to set the scene and show off your location. Like with all of these shots, it's nice and easy to shoot. Simply start with your camera low and lift up. The real magic happens in the edit with this one. Keep it simple and just frame your shot facing forward, or add keyframes to your camera movement for a much more interesting and dynamic effect. Also, try pushing forward and then lifting up for added movement. This is another great way to level up your videos and make them stand out. Okay, so which of those ideas was your favorite? Do let me know in the comments section below. And if you'd like to learn more about shooting 360 video, then be sure to watch this video here where I show you the 10 things you need to know to shoot the best 360 videos possible. But that's it from me. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.